Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the christening ceremony for the armed Virginia sloop Luna. My name is Michelle Morello, and I am your mistress of ceremonies today. In 2007, a group of maritime-minded history lovers joined together with a plan to find a bare hull and transform it into a replica 18th century coastal trading sloop. But that wasn't all. They wanted to take that sloop and turn her into a venue for an amazing style of hands-on education and training. That was the beginning of Colonial Seaport Foundation and the Luna Project. The founding fathers with that vision were John Collimore III, John Collimore IV, John Glass, Tom Ivy, Laura Noel, Maureen Savage, TJ Savage, and Pernell Taylor. Over the past 15 years, a hull was found, parts were acquired from far and wide, many others made from scratch to fill the vision of Luna. And after thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of work, she comes to life before us today. As you can imagine, bringing Luna to fruition has been a monumental task and has taken the deep love and devotion of many people. Steering the project to completion are Colonial Seaport Foundation's board members. President, John Collimore IV. Vice President and Luna's shipwright, John Collimore III. Treasurer, Susie Collimore. Captain Tom Ivy. Captain James Byers. Secretary Kathleen Armstrong. Education Director Roger Collins. Board Member and Chief Engineer Steve Madsen. And Board Member Robert Brooks. Realizing a dream like this does not just happen. It requires dedication, focus, and purpose. To share the mission that brought us here is Colonial Seaport Foundation President John Collimore IV.
Wow. Friends, welcome. I had a speech and it just kind of went out the window. As soon as I rounded the corner and I'm standing here, you all aren't paying attention to me. You're not going to remember probably anything that's said today, but your faces looking at Luna just made 15 years come to life. Thank all of you. Well, on to the speech. Well, here we are, and true to Deltaville, unofficial motto, we're all here because we're not all there. So, yep. Before we really get into my leg of the presentation here, Larry Chowning, are you close by? Come up here for a second, please, Larry. Oh, yeah. So Larry is one of our earliest supporters. He goes back far, far beyond this concept. Larry is a reporter for the local newspaper, the Southside Sentinel, National Fish, and more publications than I've got room to explain today, as well as a noted author and historian for the area. He was one of the very first people that interviewed John Collimore III at Hulls Unlimited Dad's business when he opened up shop building fiberglass boats. Crazy concept. Who would want to do that? But Larry came down, did our very first press release for us, and we are eternally grateful for that. And one of the very first things that Larry said to me was, "Hey, would you mind inviting me to the launching and the christening?" And I said, "Larry, we're going to do more than that. We're going to give you Luna's and the Colonial Seaport Foundation's first membership pass." Well, here's Larry's media pass. Absolutely. In case you don't know, he's a very important person. So, I need to thank Grace and Mom and Dad. They have just been incredible through this entire process. There are so many people that were involved and instrumental in this, but I think they kind of suffered the brunt as we all dealt with sleepless nights, scratching our heads. And here we are. So thank you to Grace and Mom and Dad. 15 years ago, Luna's vision or mission was to preserve America's colonial maritime history with the goal of having a vessel to use as a floating platform. We got it. With that, Luna came to be and has become a gathering point of an incredible group of volunteers and supporters from our communities, it just far and wide. The goal is what we see today, and here we all are. By learning and watching other tall ship programs, we learned of their successes, we learned of their challenges. In a time when tall ship programs are struggling or folding, Luna is launching with a zero financial deficit. In other words, we owe nothing on this boat financially, but we owe all of you, our friends, our supporters, more than we could ever explain. And thank all of you for your continued support. Luna's mission now encompasses environmental stewardship, community outreach and tourism, education, historical preservation, interpretation, and we're striving to create a sail cargo trading route within the Chesapeake Bay region. This has been accomplished through our volunteers, donors, morbidly curious, and believers in the Luna dream. We would be amiss if we didn't recognize our shipmates that are looking down on us, though. Pern, Cindy, Stan, Richard, Steve, TJ, Ricky, Taz, Connie, Michael, and Marianne. It's quite a group that's seeing this from above. Luna was launched just yesterday. Boy, nothing quite like cutting it down to the wire. But she made it. The engine ran just beautifully as predicted, and it was a sight. We're going to be getting that video up here shortly. As Luna's keel touched the water, we were greeted with lightning, a clap of thunder that rolled on for about 4 or 5 seconds. It was quite an approval, I believe. And with that, friends, welcome, and thank all of you.
Devotion and dedication involved in this endeavor was not just by those sitting here. As he said, many more people had a big hand in this. And to tell you about some of them is Colonial Seaport Foundation's Vice President and Luna's shipwright, John Collimore III.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Jared. It's hard to top what's already been said. I've been asked to say a few words about the supporters and so forth. And it all began with an innocent conversation while Supporters, no, I'm sorry. It all began with reenactors sitting around a kitchen table overlooking Hampton Roads. From there, their conversation led to, we need a boat. And an inquiry was sent out to northern New York for with an inquiry to produce a Colonial sloop. The price tag came back of over $3 million. Needless to say, that put a hold on the program for a little while. A friend of ours in St. Augustine, Florida, called and said, I may have a boat that is maybe of interest to you folks. Would you want to come down and see it? 3 of us went down, looked at Luna in the water in St. Augustine, and decided on our way back from St. Augustine that yes, perhaps we can do this. We had the boat shipped up to Deltaville and put on a very private piece of property, hidden away, obscured, under the radar for 15 years. And if you could have seen the boat, you would have understood. We weren't in the position to be able to bring it into a marina and have everyone say, what are you guys, lunatics? So, which we were, and that became a call sign for us as well. From that point, our conversations went, how do we pay for this? What do we do? Where do we begin? Fortunately, the group that was involved was very instrumental in putting together a magnificent group of volunteers that came up and began to work on the boat, put it all together, tear things out, rebuild the boat, and then we go, well, we're going to need some more money. So as time went along, little bits and pieces came together, and then bigger pieces. And as people saw what was going on, the interest grew, and it went from a tiny little package until what it is today, where it's been an overwhelming response, really. I could go on, and I would say to each and every one who has delivered something to us, made a contribution, thank you very much. There are all sorts of shapes, sizes, from pieces being made to store-bought pieces and so forth. But here it is all together, and we could not have done it without the support of all of our sponsors, our suppliers, and our volunteers. Thank you so much.
So now, I'm sure, like me, you've all been just staring at this magnificent vessel for a while. But let's learn more about her. I mean, she's beautiful to look at, but there's a lot more to her than just looks. So who better to glean this information from than Luna's captain, Tom Ivey. Can I have your hand, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
I seem safe doing that.
Tom, use that handrail right there.
I got it. Luna was originally designed as a ketch, which is a two-masted vessel. She was designed by James Douglas Rossberg and built in 1972 in Nova Scotia. She was originally on deck 45 foot 8 inches. When redesigned by John Collimore III, her drawings were done by Charles Neville. Modifications started in 2008. Her length was 47 feet 2 inches on deck. Her waterline length at the waterline was 37 feet 4 inches. Her beam was 13 feet 3 inches, which is the width. Draft was 5 foot 11 inches. She weighed 120 tons. Now, this is what we're working with right now. She's been redesigned as a sloop, which is only one mast instead of two. Now you see what we have to work with, and I think she's going to be a fine vessel.
Throughout the process of building Luna, Middlesex County has been very supportive of the project, as well as Colonial Seaport Foundation as a whole. And this is clear today with the presence of the Middlesex Chairman of the Board of Supervisors, Lud Kimbrough. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for being here. On behalf of Middlesex County, we are honored to attend this christening of a boat that was actually designed 100 years after Middlesex County was founded. So here in Middlesex, we consider this a pretty modern design. You know, I've heard there over 100 people had volunteered for well over 100,000 man hours to make this project happen, and I wondered, as Jock said, are we really not all here? So I did a little research to try and understand why would people be so enamored with a boat. Here in Middlesex, that is in our DNA. We're all possessed by boats here. But I did find some interesting facts. For one thing, in this boat, it's environmentally very positive. It's going to be delivering freight under sail, which hasn't happened for a long time, so it's a great contribution to the environment. Another reason is when you're messing around with boats, it's actually been found through research that for every hour you spend on a boat, your life is extended by 20 minutes. Finally, working on boats keeps us with a good sense of humor. We learn to laugh at ourselves. We can spend countless hours, endless dollars working on a boat, knowing full well that something's still broken, and the next time we get on it, it's going to need more repairs. So why would we do that? We just have to have a good sense of humor. We are honored to be here and welcome Luna. We're so glad to have her as an ambassador for Middlesex County. And thank you all for being here.
We are very fortunate to have an extraordinary keynote speaker. Kevin Duffes is a noted North Carolina author, filmmaker, and research historian who has made numerous historical discoveries and unraveled dozens of long-standing maritime mysteries. He is the author of 6 books, is an authority on lighthouses, shipwrecks, U-boats, heroic life-saving rescues, Blackbeard, and the Walter Raleigh-sponsored circumnavigation of Pamlico Sound in 1585, the subject of his forthcoming 7th book. He has appeared on National Geographic's Expedition Unknown. Turn to the side, Kevin, so we can see the profile. Yes. And currently, he is featured on the Discovery Channel documentary series, Hitler's American Battlefield. Now, I could spend much of the day extolling his virtues and telling you his phenomenal stories, but you should all go read his books, right? They get the stories right there. So let me get out of the way and give you North Carolina's 2014 Historian of the Year, Kevin Duffes.
Well, it's a great honor to have been asked to talk a little bit about the history of sloops, colonial sloops, at this very auspicious and keenly anticipated christening of Virginia's sloop Luna. Today, we're not only bringing history to life, not simply preserving history, we are as well, all of us are participating in the making of history. This stunningly beautiful symbol of our past today joins the proud fleet of America's tall ships and historic sailing replicas. You may be familiar with some of them, ships and brigs and schooners, each one with its own story to tell. But no sailing rig has had a greater impact on the early settlement and economic development along the shores of this great nation than the colonial era Bermuda sloop, represented by Luna. And no ship reproduction can tell that story more authentically than Luna. So let's now just take a few minutes, if you will, and allow me to have all of us really cast our eyes over the stern through the lens of history to consider Luna's forebears of sail and the origins, evolution and importance of the colonial American sloop. Now, according to the librarian emeritus of the Mariners Museum in 1957, she said that the sloop, based on what Luna is designed, it became the most common colonial rig in the Atlantic colonies, preferred as a fast-sailing craft for coastwise and West Indies trade. As defined by the great naval architect Howard Chappell, the design lineage of what is called the Sharp model sloop with its distinctive raked mast, as you can see, its low freeboard and raking stem and stern post can be traced to Jamaica in the early 17th century. Speed, then and there, was essential, especially if you were either escaping from an unfriendly pursuer or chasing down your prey, and the Jamaica sloop generally in those situations held the advantage. When shipbuilding inevitably denuded Jamaica of its timber, the industry moved up to Bermuda, which possessed a prized red cedar. And by the early 1700s, along these shores of the Chesapeake, the Bermuda sloop became the most popular means of conveyance. Early records about sloops and design plans from that time, however, are non-existent. I mean, instead, we have to turn to paintings and engravings that depict the appearance of sloops in American ports in the late 17th and early 18th century. What we find initially are Dutch-style sloops with lee boards and designed to be rowed as well as sailed that began showing up in Hudson River paintings of New Amsterdam in the mid-1600s. And then as many as 7 sloops anchored or sailing in the Delaware River can be seen in Peter Cooper's 1718 painting of the city of Philadelphia. And then William Burgess's well-known and highly detailed engraving of the South Prospect of New York City in 1717 shows a crowded harbor, bustling harbor, predominated by sloops. There were no longer Dutch sloops, but they were British, and there were 40 in all in this particular painting, some smaller and unarmed for river and coasting trade, and other larger sloops with guns mounted and designed for transatlantic or West Indies routes. Of course, you may all be familiar with the artist Burgess's most famous painting, which was his 1729 mezzotint engraving titled "To the Merchants of Boston, This View of the Lighthouse." And in that widely published illustration, the Boston Lighthouse stands behind a 10-gun man-of-war sloop with very similar lines to Luna. I also found another sloop in the paintings reminiscent of Luna's beautiful stern windows appearing in the New England Coasting Pilot that was published in 1734. And the more you look at these period illustrations of early American sloops, the more you realize that could we transport Luna, and I'm not suggesting this, but transport Luna back 292 years and sail her through Verrazano Narrows or up the Chesapeake Bay, no one would bat an eyelash. So authentic is Luna that she would appear to be right at home back in 1730. By the mid-18th century, extant port records begin to draw for us a more detailed image of the profusion of sloops working the waters of Virginia and the mid-Atlantic colonies. British naval records, for example, for Port Hampton, reflect that sloops predominated the various sailing rigs entering or clearing that port in 1752. That year there were 64 sloops departing and 59 sloops arriving. When examining the port records for the town of Beaufort in North Carolina for a 12-month period in 1763, I found that 72 sloops entered or cleared that port out of a total of 127 vessels. So that's 57% of all the vessels that were calling on that port. We actually don't have a complete accounting of just how many sloops were operating in American waters during colonial times. That's because nearly every successful planter along these shores of the Tidewater region, especially of Virginia and the mid-Atlantic colonies, they all owned at least one sloop that they used to transship their commodities to the nearest port town. The fore and aft sail plan with its gaff mainsail and 2 to 3 headsails made the sloop much better at sailing to windward than square-rigged ships like barks and brigs and snows. Consequently, the sloop could reach her destinations much more quickly, as the records have revealed, and they could do it with fewer hands aboard. For example, aboard the sloop sailing out of the Cape Fear River during a 3-month period in 1767, I found that the average number of crew members was just 4 men. In fact, that same year, there was a sloop of 20 tons, appropriately named Patience, that cleared the Cape Fear River for Philadelphia with just one man to operate her. No doubt he must have been fearless, having to single-handedly transit the graveyard of the Atlantic off Cape Hatteras, which has claimed many a ship. The sloop's relative speed and maneuverability in shallow waters and ability to tuck into small coves was also enjoyed by those who wished to avoid record keeping and the King's Customs officials. You might know who I'm referring to. So it is today. We simply want to tip our hats to the other sailors who were fond of Jamaica and Bermuda sloops, and they were privateers, smugglers, and pirates, both in the West Indies and in the backwaters of colonial America. That's all I'll say about pirates. Sloops of the 18th century had an enormous capacity to haul freight, depending on the sloop's displacement, which port records tell us range from 10 tons to 120 tons or more. Now, here are just a few of the examples of typical cargo hauled by sloops. From the town of Beaufort in North Carolina in 1787, the fairly small sloop Charlotte of 18 tons cleared that port for the city of New York with 180 barrels of naval stores and 150 bushels of potatoes. Out of the York River here in Virginia in 1737, the sloop Mary cleared for her home port of Bermuda with 5,000 bushels of corn, 56 bushels of peas, along with a mast for another vessel awaiting it in Bermuda and other items of timber. In June of that very same year, the sloop Molly of Virginia departed the York River for Barbados, and she was carrying 2,534 bushels of corn, 182 bushels of peas, 38 barrels of pork, and 4,000 shingles, which is a rather large cargo for a journey in a small sloop. Now, another sloop I found in the records sailing down the Hudson River in 1774 was burdened with 6,500 pitch pine boards, 1,350 bushels of wheat, 245 barrels of flour, 18 barrels of corn, and 52 firkins of butter. And to top it all off, she had aboard a horse and a carriage on its way to New York City. We also find in the port records in the mid-Atlantic colonies practically an endless shopping list of cargoes hauled by colonial sloops, and that also included mail and passengers. And we should not forget, when we tell the story of Luna, that news and rumors were also carried up and down the Atlantic coast, and in times of war, military intelligence. So now maybe we can all better appreciate why it's sometimes said that sloops built early America. In the 18th century, blue water sloops also were used in whaling and sealing voyages. In New England, sloops were used to head out to the offshore fisheries, while others transported stone from quarries, blocks of ice, and massive quantities of cordwood to heat the homes and offices of Boston, New York, and Philadelphia. And for one last example, back here in Virginia, I found a record listing the sloop Charming Anne of the upper district of the James River, which weighed anchor and laid a course for Lisbon, Portugal, with 3,765 bushels of wheat. Now, you might be surprised to hear that she went to Lisbon. Some of you might think that that's quite a long way for a sloop like this to travel, but the fact is, throughout the 18th century, these weatherly American workhorses crossed the Atlantic quite routinely, and some of them journeyed even farther than that. On December 18, 1785, the 85-ton, 58-foot-long sloop Experiment, titled Experiment, cast her lines from her Manhattan East River dock, laden with barrels of turpentine, rosin, wheat, Jamaican rum, Madeira wine, furs, and American gold, which it was in the form of ginseng root that was packed in 65 casks. She was complemented with a top gallant and studding sails for those long downwind runs, and she laid a course for the Cape of Good Hope, across the Indian Ocean, through the Java and China seas, and 6 months later, she arrived at Canton, China. The following year, in April of 1787, Experiment, loaded with Chinese tea, silks, Nanking cloths, and valuable porcelain, sailed triumphantly through Verrazano Narrows to be greeted by what was said to be scenes of great excitement along the wharves of New York City. It seemed then that there was nothing that an American sloop could not do and nowhere where one could not go. In fact, about 8 years after Experiment's amazing journey, the 94-ton, 65-foot-long sloop Union sailed out of Newport Harbor, Rhode Island, captained by a 19-year-old man named John Boyd Jr., who before departing wistfully wrote in his ship's log, "Adieu to the pretty girls of Newport." He might have said the same thing about all of you fair maidens who were present today at this christening. 22 months later, Boyd's Union sailed into Boston Harbor with her guns saluting Castle Island after sailing around the world, the first Bermuda sloop to have been able to do so. In fact, Captain Boyd wrote upon returning to home, he said, "I believe the Union was the first sloop that ever circumnavigated the globe. She did, in fact, prove to be a very excellent sea vessel," he wrote, "and was a very safe vessel." Now, I don't want any of our captains, Dutch, Captain Byers, Captain Ivy, I don't want you to get the idea about circumnavigating the globe with Luna, okay? We don't want to see her gone for 2 years. But if you do, if you have to go on one of these long journeys, the Union's captain offered this very sound advice. He said that during his voyage, the crew enjoyed good health, and no doubt that was because there was great care to keep them all clean and fumigated so that their berths were free of lice and scurvy and other diseases. So you guys, I want you to remember that when you take people out on Luna. Make sure you always fumigate them before they go on board. Now, having cast our eyes over the stern and the history of Luna's forerunners, you know, historians can not only see the past, but they can anticipate the future because of what they know about the past. So let's now look forward over Luna's bow toward the horizon and contemplate her future. Where will she go? Who will she meet? Just imagine now how many families, how many young people, how many members of future generations will see this graceful, swift, sharp, and weatherly Bermuda sloop and be captivated by her just as we are today. Imagine how many new friendships Luna is going to make. How many people will be beguiled and inspired by her beauty, her fine lines, her exceptional craftsmanship, be amazed by her speed and her cargo carrying abilities. Yes, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that Luna will take countless future admirers on a voyage of discovery and wonder. They are certain to acquire an appreciation of our nation's past and a devotion to sustain Colonial Seaport Foundation's mission to bring to life America's mid-Atlantic maritime history. Now, I'd also like us all to think that in the decades to come, there will be brought forth newly minted maritime historians, museum curators, and living history educators whose course to their future professions was charted after meeting Luna. Perhaps, if we look around, some of those future maritime professionals are present here today. Yet there's one more prediction that we can make. I think many decades from now, when all of us are gone, there will be people who will read about Luna and about Colonial Seaport Foundation, who will see and review photographs and media accounts of her creation, and even of this very christening today, and they will marvel at what all of you have accomplished. Like the sloop Union, Luna is an excellent seaboat and a very safe vessel, and we all salute you, Jock, Dutch, Grace, Susie, and all the many dedicated board members and volunteers of Colonial Seaport Foundation, because you have made her so, a fine vessel. So today we wish you fair winds and safe journeys. Godspeed. And now, please join me. Let's all salute Luna and Colonial Seaport Foundation with 3 rousing huzzahs. Huzzah! 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 Now, I'm going to spring a surprise on the board here and the foundation, because today is all about dreams. we all have dreams, and they had this dream to build this beautiful sloop Luna. And I want to introduce Pat Mansfield is a very dear friend of mine from Bath, North Carolina, and she had a dream to build Blackbeard's final command, the Sloop Adventure. As it turned out, that was not a dream that could be fulfilled, so Pat is here today. She sees Luna as the manifestation of her long-time dream, and this is her new adopted sloop. And for that reason, Pat wanted to be here today to present to the board of Colonial Seaport Foundation a very special gift that commemorates the christening of Luna today. So Dutch, would you like to come up and accept this? Wow. This is engraved with, says Luna. Thank you, sir. Luna, Colonial Christening, May 14th, 2022.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, hold on. Hey, Kevin, get back up here. All right. Thanks. It is beautiful.
Well, that's about to be put to use in what, a few minutes? Okay. One of the other items, in addition to that, the ship needs, you might notice there's something missing. The bell, right. It is the voice of the vessel. Historically, the presentation of the bell was a moment of ceremony, which you will see here. The bronze bell for Luna was created by Lawrence Campbell of Campbell Cannon and Carriage Works, who was presenting the bell to Laura Noel, events coordinator and one of the founders of Colonial Seaport Foundation, assisted by Steve Wetzel, Colonial Seaport Foundation's North Carolina liaison. They will place it aboard the ship onto the cradle. Just as a note, I had to take that moment to watch her cry. They've never seen the bell before. Now, you may be asking, why did the cannon maker make a bell? Well, it was very commonplace for bells to be made by a gun founder, the person who makes cannon, as the same lost wax method is used for making both bronze cannon and bronze bells. For centuries, ship's bells have been used for both ceremony and function. The use of the bell aboard a vessel can be traced back to one being employed on a British ship in about 1485. The list of roles of the ship's bell includes to keep time, sound alarms, signal a location to other ships, announce the arrival and departure of important people, and even being the center of ceremonies such as baptisms. Today, it is mandatory for all ships to carry an efficient bell. Next, the blessing of the ship. Now, this is a centuries-old ritual. Ancient mariners realized the seas cannot be tamed by man. Therefore, they looked to a higher power, to God, to help them deal with danger, and for skill and courage in their sailing, and for their vessel to be endowed with the strength and fortune to see the voyage through. Here to offer the blessing is Reverend Guy Holloway, founding pastor of Grace Community Baptist Church in Richmond. His first blessing of this ship has been in the work that he has done aboard her leading up to this day, and now he will offer the official blessing.
I'd like to invite you to join in prayer with me, please. Our amazing Creator, powerful God, faithful friend, in your great love, power, and master engineering, you made our galaxy, our universe, and you made us. We do not believe we made ourselves by ourselves. We see your nature art. In the majesty above, we delight, billowing clouds, blazing sun, majestic moon, refreshing rain. So we pause now to acknowledge you as the grand artist maker. So deep down in the depths of our being, we have much that points to you. You're worthy of our time, our attention, and loyalty today. We pause before you this afternoon, we workers, we businessmen, we businesswomen, we homemakers, students, and even pirates. Yes, we offer a heart of sincere thanks. Thank you for the last 20 years of dreams, work, and sacrifice in this grand Luna sloop. Thank you for skills of workmen in wood, metals, fiberglass, rope, and sails. Thank you for minds that dream and implement. For hundreds, even thousands of years, people like us have paused, celebrated, and asked you, Father, for your good providence and favor, because you make a difference that we cannot make. You create big and little things. Let this little boat have a big difference for good in years ahead. May this old ship help children and youth and adults discover new dreams, new skills, and new appreciation of those who have gone before us and traveled where we have not. May this ship be a tool of friendship and unity to bring diverse peoples together with good cheer. May this ship cause us to think of both temporal maintenance and also eternal destinies. May those who have worked so tirelessly for all these years rest and enjoy with great satisfaction all you have enabled. And may you guard and safely keep those who attend this ship. And so, God of mountains and deserts, jungles and vast rolling seas, we give thanks today and seek not our own pleasure, but yours in this christening event for the Luna. In your name, not ours, we pray. Amen.
The christening customs of a ship are varied, and they go back for centuries. The belief is that a christening ceremony will bring good luck and safe travel to a vessel. The honor of performing the christening is quite often bestowed on females, as it is believed their presence will bring a kind and feminine spirit to the ship and keep vessel and crew safe in future sailings. Boarding Luna currently are Susie Collimore, Luna's sponsor and the treasurer of Colonial Seaport Foundation, and Madeline Bowes, Luna's godmother. Luna's sponsor will be following the ancient Greek tradition of christening by pouring water on the bow to bless the boat. Throughout history, this custom has known many forms, from the christener drinking wine, whiskey, or water out of a goblet, then pouring the remaining drink on the deck, to the eventual practice of breaking the wine or champagne bottle on the bow. Luna's godmother will then follow the tradition of calling out the name of the ship. In return, the belief is that the vessel will take on a portion of her personality.
Thank you, Pat. May you always bring your crew home safely. Madeline, and Christening Luna.
Now, I do want to draw your attention to Luna's godmother. You may notice she's young. At 9 years old, Madeline is the perfect choice as a representation of the future of Luna and her youth educational programs. Aboard a ship, it was very common to hear music, right? To guide the pace of work, rigging, or just enjoyably pass the time. Well, in 2009, Cindy Warner was a donor and the shanty master for Colonial Seaport Foundation. While she knew plenty of sea songs, she thought Luna deserved her own. So she wrote an original working sea shanty called The Luna. While we lost Cindy in 2017, her song lives on, and here to perform it are Mark Miller, one of the founding members of the Rusty Cutlass Pirate Band, joined by Lady Isabel Parker on the violin and Logan Merchant on the drum.
Hang on, there we go. Good afternoon, everyone. It is such an honor to be here today, and so great to see so many old friends. It feels more like a family reunion. And we wanted to dedicate this song to Cindy Willoughby Caught, and this is her version of The Luna Sails Today. One, two, 3. Avast ye pirates, ahoy me merry crew, I have a cause for to raise a glass with you, and as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails today. That's the chorus. Now I want everyone to sing along with us when we get to the chorus. We're gonna try it again. Everyone sing. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails today. And here's to those who went to bring her home, so someday all on the sea we shall roam. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails today. And here's to those who gave of their gold, forever their kindness and tales shall be told. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails today. And here's to the carpenters so clever and so bold, daily they toil in the heat and the cold. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails away, brave boys, the Luna sails today. And here's to the shipwright, long may he stand and be of good cheer on the sea and the land. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails away. One more verse. And here's to those who no longer can be seen. We'll all meet again someday on Fiddler's Green. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails today. And as I say, when comes the happy day, the Luna sails today, brave boys, the Luna sails today. Huzzah!
Thanks for making me cry, Mark.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right, so before the christening is complete, the ownership of the vessel must be exchanged. So what you're going to observe now is the ship's sponsor, who will approve the shipwright's work and present him the logbook.
Out of the 100 vessels he ever built, this is the finest one yet. I'm so proud of him.
Now, for the years of Luna's construction, she has been under the control of the shipwright, John Collimore III. Now, with his job complete, he will transfer the vessel to the president of Colonial Seaport Foundation, John Collimore IV. The physical manifestation of this transfer comes in the form of the logbook changing hands and the shipwright's flag you will see being lowered as the Colonial Seaport Foundation flag is raised. So a quick, interesting historical note here. Now, this is really neat. In 1649, Anthony Collimore was the first Collimore in the colonies up in Massachusetts. He was the captain of the sloop Mayflower. Now, while Luna is a little shorter, she is very similar to the Mayflower. So in a way, we are seeing history repeat itself here 7 generations later. So, woke somebody up over there. All right. So the next step of the transfer is from the president of Colonial Seaport Foundation to Captain Tom Ivy, giving him control of the vessel.
Thank you, sir.
With the ship in his hands, his flag is raised, the ensign unbunted, and he puts the crew to work.
Crew of the Luna, take your positions. Bring the ship to life.
Just give me a breeze and a good rolling sea. I'll play me old squeeze box as we roll along, with the wind in the ring and sing me this song. Wrap me up in the oil skins and jumpers. No more of the docks I'll be seen. Just tell me, old shipmates, I'm taking a trip, mate. I'll see them someday on Bilber's Green. Just tell me, old shipmates, I'm taking